Gary, thing number four, not shocking. We've talked about this over and over the last couple months. Retail sales are indicating the consumer is stretched. And I think you could probably say stretched thin.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, Rob. If we go back about a year ago, um, everybody, and I was among them, thought, wow, we're going to be heading for a recession. Now, I was on record as saying it's not going to happen this year, and I've been right about that. But last year, I was wrong about it. And one of the reasons is the consumer was just spending like crazy. So it turns out that, all of the stimmies that had been handed out in 2020 and 2021 bolstered people's bank accounts. They paid down debt. And then, the lockdowns, they crushed people's businesses. The other side of that was it was a lot of people staying home and not spending money. And so the country at one point, I don't know, a year or two ago, had its all-time high credit score. And so consumers feeling flush and feeling frustrated by a couple of years of lockdowns and not being able to spend got out there and started to spend. And then we started talking about increases in credit usage. We started talking about delinquencies, and that spending has started to slow. So in 2 of the past 4 months, consumer spending has been down. And then in May, retail sales were up 0.1%. That's a monthly number. But that annualizes to just 1.2%, and it was below the 0.2% estimate. Now, again, are the government numbers accurate? Who in the world knows on this? Trying to measure retail sales in a country the size of the United States to 1/10 of 1% is not possible. The reported number was 0.1. What was the real number? Was it 0? Was it 0.2, 0.3? I have no idea. I don't think one miss means that the economy is in terrible shape, but it's not a great sign in a consumer-led economy to see that spending slow down. That said, it does make sense on an individual level. And if you're listening to this, I've also been on record saying it's a good idea to save, although don't save in dollars, but to save and invest and don't spend everything all the time. I understand why people are doing it and why they may be frustrated with the economy, but I'd advise against it. A little caution is a good thing.
We've talked about a bifurcated economy as well. You have this situation where wealthy asset gatherers, right, are probably doing well, right, or they're doing well enough at this point in time. On the opposite end of that spectrum, right, we see the families. Your run-of-the-mill middle class that are the ones struggling with gas prices, food, etc. At what point does kind of that masses versus the classes, right? The struggles with the masses start to really affect the classes at the same time. What does that look like? Is that coming in a recession? How does that kind of counterbalance one another? Because it seems like it's obviously so heavily weighted towards the wealthy end of the spectrum currently.
Rob, I think we're already there. One of the things that frustrates me is the programs that the government the programs that the government follows ostensibly to address their perceived problems with income inequality and to supposedly help the poor end up making things worse. So, we were just talking about the stimmies people got, and that was terrific. It got people out of debt. Okay, terrific. But here's what ended up happening. We had inflation. And so for wealthy people, you know, they owned homes and they had advantageous mortgages where the money they owed was being debased. And, people owned stocks, which have gone up a lot. They own, investments in businesses, watches, cars, art, the kinds of the asset bubble that got blown up by all the money entering the economy was terrific for wealthy people. But here's what happened to poor people or less affluent people, right? They got, an $800 stimmy check, $1,600 check, and that was terrific. But if their expenses went up by $100 or $200 a month with inflation and everybody's grocery bills are up, again, I talk about this constantly, but don't tell me that food inflation is only 1%. I just don't believe it. So, Rob, think about it. If I give you a check for $1,600, you're like, hey, terrific, free money. I'm happy. But then if your monthly expenses go up by $100 or $200 every month, every year, right? This inflation compounds. that's not a good deal. Right.
Right.
And so the plans that the government engages in supposedly to address income inequality, to supposedly help poor people, ends up making things much, much worse for them. We're already there. These programs are harming the poor and the middle class. They are helping the wealthy. And the offensive thing about it is that the same people doing this are saying, well, we're trying to make sure the wealthy pay their fair share and that we're trying to help poor people, but their actual actions are the opposite of that. I think that's, I think that's the issue. The debate that's going on in the finance community is, do we believe the official numbers or not? And so, I get invited to do podcasts and webinars on a fairly regular basis. And sometimes on those, I get to talk with other people who I think, they're really great market strategists. They're good economists. These are really smart people who have a big following for a good reason. And I've had discussions and debates with them, and their view is the economy's in good shape because GDP is up, or unemployment is down, or inflation has subsided from its highs. And they're telling me, no, the numbers are the numbers, and we aggregated and the economy's in good shape. And I understand, like, technically that's what the formulas would tell you. My point on all of this is we have a small number of people doing extremely well and a very large number of people who are struggling with the current economy. And so I don't think that's an accurate way to view it. And if you have a situation where, a small number of multi-billionaires are dragging up the averages, but a large number of people are struggling trying to pay their grocery bills, I don't think that's a sign of a healthy economy. And I think it's important to try to parse out the differences. And that's why I talk about a bifurcated economy, where other people, again, these are people I respect, but they talk about really a unified economy. These are the general numbers.
Great point, Gary. And will be interesting to see. And I think you're right. It's just a system that, again, kind of that's becoming a theme too, right? It's just there's these things that are just absolutely broken, right?
Yeah.
That need complete reform. Now, what that looks like, that's the issue.